that can help start things, but ultimately when you're talking about
just in the different venues, whereas this is sort of
being run with them, or they're going to think more of. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This is the Clever Dummies Podcast. We are up to episode number 31, doing the damn thing, baby. I'm Lockie, and Nick, how you going, big fella?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's good to be here. It's a beautiful day to be alive. You know, I wouldn't be anywhere than this, doing this podcast on a beautiful, beautiful Saturday evening. Not that I could be anywhere. It's, like I say every week.
Oh, mate, if you could be anywhere else in your LGA, mate, you'd rather be nowhere else. Am I right?
Well, if I could, exactly. If I could be anywhere in my LGA, I would be at Welland Reserve.
Yeah. Yeah, bro, imagine 10 p.m. we're recording this. Imagine the absolute chaos that's going on. Shout out to Wayland Reserve and all the battlists down there. But just one piece of advice for anyone: if you go anywhere near Wayland Reserve, make sure you've got shoes on. Okay. Apart from that, it's a jungle out there, you know.
Oh, it's complete anarchy there. It's a town. You know what? A bit like a current situation of Sydney.
Well, that's right, mate. And, hey, you know, that beautiful cricket oval that they have just randomly placed in just dirt poor Wayland Park. if they actually, technically that's St. Mary's there when you cross that side. If they set up a COVID testing centre, they mightn't get a lot of positive cases, but they'd find a shitload of needles. So.
What you're saying is this may not be a prime location for getting COVID tested, but definitely a prime location for the vaccine.
For the jab, to get jab. Wait, what about this? I don't know about the Pfizer, but you can catch these jabs, bro. Boom, boom. Oh, shit. Nah, good stuff, baby.
If you want a jab, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, mate. And the uppercut to follow, eh? Nah, it's so good to catch up, mate. We've been ranting and raving. You know, we always say we do our best work pre-recording of the podcast, but we certainly rolled our sleeves up and got into it. I mean, before we get going, I guess you pulled some memories out of the archives. I'd love a way for the people to be able to hear that too. I don't know, but back, I can't remember what the exact date was, but I can throw
some in.
So we were doing the Sounds of Summer. It was 2016. It was the 9 p.m. slot because I remember we had a 4 p.m. one for a while, and then we went late night. That was probably the best thing we could have done for like that semester, 6 months. We had it was like on a Wednesday or a Thursday night, right? Like nothing better to do.
No, it was Friday night, wasn't it?
Nah, it wasn't a Friday because my dad used to do Friday. It definitely wasn't a Friday.
Yeah.
I think it was Thursday. Yeah, I'm not sure. But either way, no one from the station was listening. So we just yahooed and carried on. And just hearing us speak and talk and, kind of the evolution, it sounds the same, right? Like, because it's still us and it's not like it was completely different. But just the dynamic, I think, of being on radio and having the constraints of like the time, and then obviously we were just so inexperienced. Like basically, our only practice before that was the now defunct Casting Couch. You know, one of the great shows. So like, I think we were still doing pretty well, bro.
Let me. I think I've got some here. So let me see. I mean, what I could do, I'll play this, and then we'll be quiet, and then we could overlay the actual sound of this.
Bro, that's sick.
So let's see. Let's hear it. Oh, perfect.
Dude, Ellie Goulding had that song.
Like you do really put Ellie Goulding on that pedestal she is on now, and congratulations. Let's bring it back.
Oh, fuck off.
She deserves it.
Ellie Goulding is the way to go.
Just don't ask Ed Sheeran. They'll do the opposite. Anyway,
did you know her song?
Bro, some cultural talk here. I forgot about all this shit. I was like, I don't know what we're talking about here.
I know.
What was the other one? Something about
Diligently.
Was it? It's like I just like your tattoos. What was it? Oh, I know.
Terrence, the great man.
Also kind of did a song about it. I think it's the song "Don't."
Yeah, Don't. Yeah,
that was about the little.
And then he just brought in old mate bloody Pharrell Williams just to.
Yeah.
No, about you, but nonetheless. Just
what am I saying?
Well, I do.
I mean, she.
That's a little bit of a throwback, I guess.
Yeah.
I always say this, right? One of the greatest thing we did, right? And this is, we've been doing this for a while now. This is we started basically recording ourselves in one way or another since like before it became big on it became mainstream almost.
Podcasting, yeah,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. I mean, podcasting and like vlogging was around then, but it's very, very primitive in its days at the time when we started. Like it was, you had few people like Casey Neistat and those like originals doing the, people who essentially made vlogging. Like, you got Casey Neistat, who's literally the person who made vlogging a vlog
Shit,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
And
Yep.
then, and then, so I think we started really then. I mean, we've got like hours of footage and recording of us just talking crap, and it's just so brilliant. One day,
Oh,
it
yeah.
needs to be, we need to
Highlighted
turn it into a
a
reel.
reel.
Yeah,
Well, bro,
highlighted.
if we go back really a long time ago, it was when, bro, it would have been, I was probably 2013 because I think I got my driver's license around the time, but we were in your car. Remember, we'd be driving home from the gym at night
Yeah,
time
yeah.
before we even got on radio, before we did the now defunct casting couch. Back in those days, we were just Yahoo and carrying on. Some of that footage, I know I had a sick sense of humor, and I was like, if potentially in the future, if I ever get a name for myself, then I'm going to get cancelled for some of the things I was saying. So we would have to we would have to scroll through. I might have to just delete my Facebook account. But bro, it's coming up to nearly 10. Think about it, bro. It's been nearly 9 years since we've been doing the damn thing in some form or another. Obviously, then we did a whole bunch of random skits at the gym, the bloody form police, and all this Yahoo and carrying on. And the now defunct Danny Marie, I think, was in one of those. And then, and then, and then we moved over to obviously radio, sort of 2014, 2015. And as I said before, we started like early afternoon. I think it was like 2 or 3 o'clock, just on a Tuesday hour or something random. And like, I guess a bit of context, because there's probably a fair few people that don't know that, but like there's a station still going to this day. My dad's still doing a show. It's 20 years, bro. He's been doing his show on a Friday night. So that's Swire FM 99.9 FM for any of our Sydney battlers out there. So we're doing the show just at the back of Blacktown Showground. I think we did that for about 3 semesters, which was probably 18 months. And then obviously had some time. And then we did the now defunct casting couch. We probably can't bring that back. That was pretty rough. That one, that was after midnight, a bit crazy. And then we started
that
this
was
at the
something.
start of 2020. So yeah, it was pretty good for our history, mate.
100%. I do think there's a room for a new and improved casting couch. But hey, that's a conversation for another day, another podcast, I believe.
I agree, yeah, because the podcast is an entity in itself. The casting couch would facilitate like a 30-minute reactive. The good thing about that sort of setup would be the ability, and we could do it eventually when we start doing video with this and that sort of thing, but it would be talking news and current events, and it'll be reacting to different stories and then facilitating that. The beautiful thing obviously about podcasting is you just rely solely on audio. So, but no, 100%, mate. Maybe one day we'll bring it back, and unlike OnlyFans, mate, we won't chicken out when they're going. Did you hear about that, mate? That's rough, eh? The banks were like, mate, we're not going to fund you. You just need to get rid of some of the titties, get rid of some of the nudity, and we'll get going. But I'll tell you what that is. That's just a marketing strategy for OnlyFans so they can get the backing of the banks. And for anyone out there that's not aware, basically OnlyFans wanted to go public, I believe, or they wanted greater investment so they could just continue to evolve their product. Products like Brazzers and those sort of companies that are just full on porn and full on nudity, they're actually funded by banks. Like they actually have like investors and that sort of thing. So I think OnlyFans were just trying to sway away from this, like, if people, you've got an OnlyFans account, it means you're doing porn or you're being nude on there. But like, I know a lot of gamers that have come off Twitch and YouTube and other platforms that are actually streaming on OnlyFans. There's a few martial arts guys that I follow that do their stuff on there. So it's a bit interesting. Have you followed it at all?
Yeah, so the story goes, I think it's obviously they're a bit towards their IPO. I think one of the things is major thing is, so I looked into it. I think they're gonna still allow certain level of nudity, but I think it's
Yeah.
probably going to take away from like, it won't be just straight up porn and stuff like that. So I think that's something like that. I'm not sure exactly. I haven't read through the community guidelines that they put in, but I think it's something along those lines. I'm not that interested, to be honest, in the whole idea.
Nah.
But I mean, to be honest, you know,
Shaitan.
part of me is okay with the idea of you know, it just kind of not being a thing, because first of all, there's Pornhub there, right? So shout out to Pornhub, right? Second thing is, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but it is a very much of a quick cash grab for people, and I mean, it's probably not building healthy humans. And I know there's a lot of things about sex work being real jobs and stuff. You know, that's all cool and whatnot, right? But I don't think. I mean, it probably, you know, I'm probably uneducated saying this, but right, I don't know that well. But I don't think, you know, taking pictures of yourself and just posting them online and doing that quick cash grab it does account for sex work per se. You know, I think it's look, I mean, if you can make money, why not make money, right? If I could make quick money like that, I'd probably do it too, right? But at the same time, I don't think that's probably sustainable or can't be good for our society in any way, just the way it seems. Yeah, so
Most definitely, bro. I think if you look at a couple of examples of history, you look at the Roman Empire, early 2nd century before their fall, bro. They sex was, as you know, it was just like dinner. It was just like there's sex and there's dinner. Like, even though porn and all these things have, like, you know, they're very much fabricated in society. Like 80% of people, 70% of people consume it on a semi or regular basis. So like people know about it, but the fact that it isn't just so socially accepted that people are talking about it everywhere, it's kind of got this like hidden element to it. I think we all kind of inherently deep down know that it's a wrong and it's a bad thing, but it's sort of like a guilty pleasure we all share. And I have heard really good arguments in regards to sex work and even like strippers and dancers and that sort of thing. Like it's a really safe way for them to make good money, and I actually agree with that. And maybe that's what it should be there for potentially. But yeah, when it becomes a societal acceptance, and then any women after and men too, but predominantly women, like very high percentage of women, they're coming out of high school, they're not really sure what to do. They have a friend that makes easy money on OnlyFans. They go, all right, I'll do this for a little bit. You know, it's easy money. I get it. And then when that becomes an option, it becomes dangerous, right? So like I understand both sides of the argument, but I just can't, you know, I can't support it, unfortunately.
And that's the thing,
not
right?
Unfortunately, I just can't support it. It's just it's not good for the society in overall. You know,
the thing is, and this is the thing, right? It is and then this is where the whole sex work idea comes in, right? Because you know, obviously, I think. You know, I guess it's a service, like just like anything, right? And you know, dare I say, and people do always talk about as being the oldest profession in history. Like, you know, there's some merit to that, right? And especially when it's a safer way, that means at least, you know, people, you know, there's at least it's a lesser of the two evils, right? It being existing, right? My only argument comes in, and this is the problem that I was talking about, it can't be healthy for society, is the fact that, like you said, you know, you have a girl who comes out of high school, and it's a very confusing time in our lives. You know that, I know. As guys, it's a confusing time for our, you know, it's a very confusing time because, you know, you're told that you have to go to university, rack up loans, and, you know, and then on Instagram people are buying Lamborghinis at your age, and, you know, 15-year-old kids are driving around in Teslas, and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? And I'm failing stats, you know. So, you know, it sounds like that's a life of a 18-year-old kid who leaves school, and, you know, until only 6 weeks ago you were told that, you know, you had to ask, Mace, can I go to the fucking toilet? And now you're, you know, navigating the word, and, like, you know, so it's a very difficult time. And now it seems like it. So those are the time that normally tend to make you have to make some really hard choices. You have to decide who you're going to be and all those things, right? And this is the time, and then you go, well, okay, well, why can't I just begin that? Like, you know, and it's so easy to just go down that option. And we go, well, what's wrong with people making money? There's nothing wrong with people making. I'm just saying that, you know, we fought so hard again to, you know, the whole idea of women's right and stuff. So now that we have equality, you know, you're gonna just turn young women you're gonna just take away their drive, because now they're just making money and buying Gucci bags, and there's nothing wrong with that, once again. But they could be the girl. She could be the next Prime Minister of Australia, but now she ended up just having an OnlyFans account. Maybe she still could, but I sure do think, and I know this, whenever I've gotten a high-paying job, my drive to change the world and all those things goes down. So, money is good, but it's also, like they say, depends on how hard it is you get money,
Yeah, it needs to be closely linked to like another goal. So you might get a promotion at work, but then you get extra responsibility. Then it's like, all right, I'm still at square one a little bit. I'm still having to work, but it's like, hey, you're the boss now. Do whatever you want. Hey, you're making pretty decent money. We knew someone that did OnlyFans, and she was really on the low end of in regards to how a lot of other people do it, and she would have been clearing $5,000 to $10,000 a month, and she was not overly as popular as a lot of other people. So the option is there, of course, but yeah, it's just there's something to it that it's just there's it leads. I think it facilitates the society that is already really struggling with identity and mental health and over sexualization from a young age. These sort of things. And look, the argument could be, hey, we have porn that is just so readily available, but the fact that porn is talked behind closed doors means that it's something that isn't socially accepted, at least in a you're not going to go to a work meeting and talk about the categories you looked up last night. You're hiding what you're doing. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
And it fits it in a box that it kind of needs to be in. You know what I mean?
And
yeah.
Keep in mind, right? Keep in mind, there's that, right? That's why there's the saying goes, people who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and people who fail to delete the history are doomed to explain it, right?
Fuck, you put that on a shirt, bro. That's fucking outstanding.
How good is it, right? So the fact of the matter is,
it's like dotting your T's and crossing your I's, mate. So good.
I love that saying. So the fact of the matter is that you look at porn is right, and I'm by no means I'm saying endorsing porn here, right? But porn is a systematic systematic industry, right? It employs people, and it has all these checks and measures, right? And obviously, who was the one of the I saw a porn star on a podcast, I think it might have been Joe Rogan's podcast she was on, and she was talking about how they've got a psychologist that they talk to and all these things, right? So.
Yeah.
And I know there's been rumors about porns being a really horrible industry for young women to work in, and all that I bet is probably true. But
child trafficking, bro.
Yeah, now you've got an industry which is not mediated by even of the smallest of the measures. So I think it's interesting. I do know that a lot of the world is moving towards that, so it'd be interesting how it ends up being. But for the time being, I think it's still too early we're still too primitive stages of that change, where everything becomes unmediated by the greater control of systematic approaches, right? Where we have to individualistically find help. So for example, if I have a job, I need to go find time to take a break and put money in my super and go see a psychologist and all those things, right? So I think that will happen eventually, but I think at the moment we're still too much of a primitive time for something like this to exist. And saying all that, if you're still into it, go for gold. We'll see what happens. Hey, fun fact, right?
Make the most of it while it's still there.
That's exactly right. By the way, there's some big words that I said there.
Oh. Impressive.
Huge, impressive, right? And it's in a single sentence as well. Talking about porn, right? So get this, it's a bit of a fun fact. Apart from the category, I'm talking about the top search websites in Australia, right? Obviously, first one being Google itself, right? Followed by Google apart from the categories of social media, which includes the likes of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, right? And excluding emails and excluding news, porn is the number one category.
So outside of that one, yeah, totally.
Yeah,
and
outside of social media, outside of emails, outside of news, it's a top category.
In Australia, which I can't remember the exact figures
CBA,
of overall populations. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
CBA is below porn.
Wow, and how many people bank with CBA?
That's
So I
saying
don't know
something.
exactly what our total population is compared to the world, like country ranking. I believe there's around about 215 approximately countries in the world, right? And Australia is somewhere in the hundreds in terms of total population. So like, we're nearly half of the world of countries has more people than we do, right? Like at 25, 26 million, whatever we are now. But we rank 7th in total Pornhub usage, time and searches. So we've got over 100 countries ahead of us in terms of population. And obviously there's countries there that, don't have the facilities for the internet and that sort of thing in our phones and whatever else. But we're 7th, bro, and we've got 25 million battlers. We've got maybe half, I don't know, 2/3 of that population that have access to it. Like, that's crazy, man. It's pretty crazy. Like, how
I
old?
think
How old were you when you and like we're just fucking staring into a brick wall maybe here with this podcast? But do you remember how old you were when you first watched porn?
I can either confirm or deny those accusations. What do you mean? I've never seen porn before. I have no idea what porn is. I can barely talk about such things.
Okay,
I can
so
neither.
how old were you when you first realized that there was something wrong about it?
I mean, fairly young. I mean, it's like it's a inherent a feeling or know something that you just know, and it's like anything else, right? And you don't have to be even told. You just know because that's something that you want to hide from people. Anything,
Yeah,
it's a good rule of thumb that something that you want to hide from people tends to be something that and I'm not talking about privacy thing. I'm just talking about something that you generally feel like you don't want to tell people or shouldn't tell people is tends to be partially not good for you or good for society measures or whatnot.
totally. I think the when I
Okay, so
realized
we're
it for
55th
me,
by
oh,
population.
okay, 50. Okay, still not quite 100. I was getting a bit
Yeah.
crazy, but
Hey,
still,
I just
and we're
realized
7th
Pakistan
in
is
terms
number
of total.
5 by population.
What are they, like 200 million or something? 250?
200
How much have
million.
they got?
God damn,
Bro, that's
200
crazy.
million.
Oh,
They're
mate.
up there, huh?
They're all savages out there too, absolute demons, mate. So I think when I got to that age when I realized there was something off about it was when like my buddies were like teasing me for not watching it a lot. It was like, or they were like saying, "Oh, you only watch it once a week, bro. I watch it 5 times a day." Like, they're probably lying, but it's just like I was like, I'm not putting 2 and 2 together. Like I understand, as a young kid, and like that's particularly as male. It's like you're always trying to one up the boys, and they'll talk about how many girlfriends you had, all these sort of things. But I remember there was like this weird red flag that went over my head when people were talking about like, "Oh, bro, you don't watch it enough," and I'm like, I don't know. And then from there, and now I know like the negative effects it's had on my life and has on a lot of people's lives. And I think the fact that it's socially accepted at such a young age when we're not equipped, bro, you could argue it's way more intoxicating and powerful than alcohol, and we have to wait till 18 to start drinking. And most people start consuming it on average when they're 11 or 12, bro. Like, it's pretty crazy.
I know. Hey, I've got another stat for you, and this one's gonna hurt. Are you ready? This one's gonna hurt. Here's a list of 10 countries that stood above all in the race of watching porn online. Porn consumption ranked by country. Number 1, Pakistan.
What? Number 1? How?
Number 2, Egypt. Number 3, Vietnam. Number 4, Iran. Number 5, Morocco. Number 6, India. Number 7, Saudi Arabia. Number 8, Turkey. Number 9, Philippines. Number 10, Poland. According to the research conducted by porn medical doctor.
Percentage of population? What's that ranking of that?
No, this is just how the top countries by country.
Bro, they're like nearly all Muslim countries.
Well, that's not. Listen to this. Listen to this. According to the research carried out by the Porn MD, 6 out of the 10 top countries by porn consumption on the planet are Muslim states.
Yeah. Wow.
God fucking damn.
Bro, it's the old adage, like when you try to control people and tell people not to do something, they have like this reason to go and do it specifically, eh? Wow.
That's insane.
Shout out to the boys, eh?
Shout out to the boys. Shout out to the boys. All right. So this is a little bit of a fun topic, I guess, in a way we talked about, right? So
yeah.
We were talking about rules and whatnot. I guess it's just kind of all the same
Yeah,
topic,
bit of
the
food for
way
thought for people out
a
there, I
bit
reckon.
of a food for thought, right?
Mm.
One thing that I did want to talk about today, and we were just briefly chatting about this before our podcast started. I mean, so just like just like every single episode, about 25 minutes in, we get into the actual topic at hand. So, for those of you who stuck around for the actual topic, so let's get into it, right? So, and perhaps this is the easy topic, and it'd be really nice to just stick to the kind of the flow we were going in, but I do think this is something that I do want to talk about, so it's probably important as well, right? As we know, and we've done multiple episodes about this, and I guess in a different times of this situation evolving, particularly with the coronavirus as we know it, right? Essentially when we started this podcast was just before COVID-19 hit, right? So in some cases, I guess it was kind of more of a reason for us to keep going with the podcast because we didn't have a lot to do. But another thing, the good thing doing this podcast during this whole COVID-19 debacle was the fact that we could document the different aspect of how this whole situation evolved, or at least how what we were feeling and thinking at the time that the situation was at. So now it seems like this was like kind of like the tail end of the whole the whole pandemic debacle, and that's what it seemed like only a couple of months ago, particularly in Australia, right? So you go, oh well, it almost seemed like things were getting back to normal, and and all that hopeful stuff. And then then came the old Delta variant, and it kind of ruined everything, and kind of threw all the plans into a wormhole of basically darkness and lockdowns, and and the biggest decision whether to die from the vaccine or to die from the corona. So with all that in mind, right, there's a lot of things that overall have been happening, right? So first of all, I want to, and I was just saying this to you, Lachlan, as well, just before we started this podcast. I want to kind of say this stance, and then we can kind of get into it, right? So this is why I stance. I think COVID-19. I do think COVID-19 is a real disease, and I think it's a dangerous disease. And I think it's going to kill people. It will kill people. It has killed people in the past. It'd probably kill me, but the thing is, it's a
us
dangerous,
vapors, mate. Us vapors with the lungs, mate. We're in all sorts. And look, let's quickly pull up worldwide stats, right? So worldwide COVID stats.
Right. So it's a dangerous disease, right? And then followed by that, I think the vaccine works. It seems like it's reducing certain level of people's spread and whatever. Like, I mean, I'm still yet to see certain level, like a real. Yeah, it seems like it's working, right? I mean, I can't talk a lot about it because
so 215 million cases worldwide. So 215 million in 4.48 million deaths. And those are obviously people who have COVID-19 on their death certificate. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a dangerous disease. Whether it was some of them were accident or not, nonetheless they can't all be just fake. So it seems like COVID-19 is real. So that's out of the way. All right. So people who deny directly saying COVID-19 is not real are probably a bunch of idiots and probably consume way too much of internet rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Second one,
they're down a rabbit hole without a ladder,
That's exactly
so
right.
There's no way to get out, so you just got to go deeper.
Exactly. And then there's the government, right? So with all that in mind, I think what has happened here is that this, first of all, then I've said this over and over again, Lachlan, and tell me what you think of this one, right? We kind of knew for a while now, especially with the world becoming so free flowing and flights everywhere, and people mingling, different races coming together all the time, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that's what I want. This is what I love about the world, right? That fact that I can catch a plane I used to be able to catch a plane anywhere and just go anywhere, right? That was so awesome, right? Especially in like living in a country like Australia, which incredibly has one of the most powerful passport that you can enter most of the countries without any restrictions, which is so brilliant, so beautiful, and I want to get back to that.
It's a testament to
but there, we did know that with such a free flowing traffic, there was only about time that's a disease that was, as easily spread as spread would spread quick, would spread like the word, right? So number 8, no one really did anything about it, or maybe they did, clearly no, they didn't do a good job, right? you know the second one was, now let's talk about Australia back home. I think our government completely screwed up, and they have vilified people who've tried to stand up to different things. They have vilified, they use such terminology with psychologically backed terminology where they made people super scared. They, with the use of, they use media really well to control society and divide society by using this, right? And this is the biggest problem. I think government is gaining a very, very high level of political benefit. Well, not government, I should say the political parties or the political stance are playing a very expensive game at the expense of its people, to make certain points. I think that's a very dangerous game that we're playing now. What do you think?
100%. 100%. Sorry, I didn't realize you wrapped up before you were going down a really good point. Say that last part again. I was just thinking about
I think
something that you
I
said
think the
before.
government. I think the problem is with this whole COVID-19 and the vaccine and whatnot, right? Is that it's all being used as a weapon to gain benefit for the political standpoints, and at the expense of its own people, whether it be, whether it doesn't matter whether your stance is left leaning or right leaning, right? It's really, really dividing people and vilifying certain people, and not taking into consideration individualistic stories and experiences, and really discounting them all, and using one blanket rules over the whole society, and just kind of going with it. And you got, so I think, and this is happening at the expense of our nation, our people. So I think that's really, really poor form on the behalf of the decision makers that we the people have put in place.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's what I was getting. So I can't remember, it was yesterday or the day before, our Premier Gladdy. I still struggle with that last name,
Gladys
Berejiklian or something.
Berejiklian.
Berejiklian, there we go. So Gladdy was on there, and she was talking about like the vaccination rate that, and this is just an example of where I think it's shifted, from what it began as let's brace for this thing. Like, we actually don't know what's going on. We've seen Brazil, this time last year when we were still really early in the second, we've seen Brazil, we've seen these countries really struggle with it. So let's play the conservative game. Let's not try to overrun our healthcare system. And I'm like, all right, I'm actually down for that. It freaking sucks. And this thing is mutating and it's moving around and we don't know where it came from. Um, and we don't know where it came from. We don't know why it's spreading so quickly. But hey, let's get on top of this thing. Let's be proactive. Let's lock down, and we'll sort of play it by hand. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, blah, blah, blah. It's actually a good concept in theory, because, like, all right, after 2 weeks, we'll see how we go. So on Thursday, I heard her say, they were talking about the 70% number they want to hit, and it seems like 80% vaccinations is where they really want to be at. And she mentioned that she wanted to see, this is statewide, obviously, because she's our premier, she wanted to see 80% of our population have at least one vaccine. And it wasn't like, okay, we feel that you guys are going to be safe enough now after 80% and we can start to reopen, we can start to ease restrictions. No. So after this 80%, we will have the confidence in our population that you're going to go ahead and get the second vaccine. So it's like, okay, obviously, if we get both vaccines, we're better protected. But backtrack that for a second. So at 80%, it's not about you guys being protected and we being able to take care of you. It's we have faith that you are going to get this second vaccine at 80%. And like, I understand that's strategy and everything else, but ultimately you're predicating your decisions and your lockdowns off what we're servicing you. When it's 80%, then we're going to have faith that we can give you guys back some of the rights that we've taken away. And that was just a massive red flag. And hopefully I kind of explained what I picked up on there, but it was just really weirdly worded. And it's obviously the strategy they're going ahead about and the way the dialogue that's going on in between behind closed doors, and these people don't, they can't take care of themselves. We've got to be proactive, and we've got to do it for them. At 80%, we have the confidence that you're going to get your second vaccine, and it's like, I understand, and like it's probably a better idea that most of us get the vaccine, but at the end of the day, you don't have the power, or you shouldn't. Turns out you do have the power. You shouldn't have the power to be able to make those decisions outside of, what you're in the position you're in, because you were elected. You're ultimately, as a leader, as a politician, and from local to state to federal level, you're in that position to service the people and be a mouthpiece for the greater people. It's not the other way around. Like, this is not communist China. This is not socialist. And people start throwing out these words, and you're a nut job, and you're a conspiracy theorist, and just listen to what they're saying. It's like, I understand, and look, they're probably trying to do the right thing by all of us, but it's human nature. Once you give entities enough power, it's very hard to get that back. And if we don't learn from history, we're just going to repeat it. And it's as simple as that. This is not crazy talk. This is not just, what is this? This is not just nonsense. This is dead set truth. You can find it throughout all of human history. And we think because we live in the 20th century and we've got computers and we've got mobile phones that we're different. Bro, the human race is still the human race at the end of the day. We're still primal beings. We still have sex drives. We still have the need for community. We still struggle in isolation. You know what I mean? Like, there's one reason why people died at such a young age. It wasn't just medicine. It was the fact that they lived very closely together. And once people started dying and they lost their communities, people started dying. So that's, that's kind of a little bit of another rabbit hole. But it's just the division that's being created by the dialogue that's going on, and then obviously we can from there go into the realms of businesses forcing their employees and customers to be vaccinated or show a passport. The word vaccine passport 12 months ago would have scared most people, and most people would not have been down for it. 12 months later, a little bit of social conditioning. Bro, if you ask me, I believe that the government saw people in Sydney protesting and wanted to punish those people by extending lockdowns. That's just my opinion. I might be entirely wrong. Hey, let's look at the numbers. The numbers are going up. That's why lockdowns are still here. Let's do a little basic math equation and figure out why the numbers are going up the way they are, which you did before for me. Very coincidentally, just a steady amount going up. And then once a little bit of people start acting a little bit, they start following our orders. Okay, you can go out with your friends for an hour. You can have a picnic with vaccinated people. Guys, what are we doing here? Like, what the fuck is going on? Anyway, it is what it is. But it's tough, man. It's tough. And like, I don't read. I try not to go down the rabbit holes. I try to go into the history books. So the rabbit holes I try to go into is the history books. It's listening to people who are expertise on, Germany, World War II, expertise on the Roman Empire, experts on, the referendum that occurred in the 15th, 16th century in England, where mass division occurred, and the Greek Empire that fell, and Egypt, and those sort of things. Like, that's where I'm going. I'm not going towards old 5G Larry down the road. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to get critical about this, and I've been on board for a long time, but it's getting to a stage now, and I understand that we need to be conservatives with this thing, because this thing is dangerous. But you can only have one or two things. You can either have security or you can have your freedom. You can't have both. And, I want freedom over security. It is what it is. So, I don't know. You're on mute, by the way, mate, just quickly.
That happens to best of us, right?
Yeah, it does, mate.
So,
the 5G towers, bro.
So I was just saying, right? So I'm very analytical, right? I like to look at numbers and like trends and like what's happening, and I've got Excel sheets like kind of freaking detailing my meals and how I feel. Like, I'm really like, that's how I think. And I explained this before. Like, my way of thinking is like a lot more in data format, and because I guess that's how I view the world, right? It's probably fucked up at some level, and I've got some sort of a mental generational trauma or mental trauma that makes me do it. But I am an analytic, right? Analytical person. And then And then you don't have to go far in history books. Just listen to what the experts who are in Australia, who are helping the government make these decisions, are what are they saying outside of the narrative that the government is saying, right? Or the all these leaders are saying, right? It's quite interesting. I was listening to someone, um, actually on Channel 9, I believe it was, just talk about, and they would talk about this whole situation. They were saying, so they said, so what's going to happen once we get to 80%? They said, okay, well, we don't have to. And then he said, I would like to come out here and tell you the good news that it was going to be all okay, and the vaccine is the silver bullet that we all need. The fact of the matter is, we can look at the modeling, or we can look at a real example. We can look at England, who's almost 70%, roughly 70% vaccinated, right? And they opened up, and they're getting 50,000 cases, and thousands of people dying, right? Sure, probably reduced. If they opened up without the vaccine, it would have been hundreds and thousands of cases,
For sure, for
uh,
sure.
and hundreds and thousands of people dying. That's true, right? But we also know the vaccine is not the complete answer the way our government is making it out to be. Our government at the moment is making the vaccine that the moment you get that, we get all the jab, 80% of us get double jab, let's say a single jab, that's it, there's no more COVID. And that's the problem. It feels like the government is treating us like we're a bunch of fucking idiots. And this is the problem, right? Our society, particularly in Australia, not particularly, overall and worldwide, right? Let's look at our society, right? Our society holds some of the smartest people in the world to walk on this earth, not just Australian, overall, right? Human society does, right? Who are outside the structure of the government, if that makes sense, right? We're talking about super scientists and geniuses and mathematicians and all these people. They're not, on average, I don't think our society is that dumb that you are trying to manipulate, like you're trying to take us as children. We're not children, and that's a big thing. And another thing that I really want to talk about, and it kind of pissed me off thinking about it. I heard I think it was the minister of um ambulances or something like that, or one of those people, right? He was just talking about, like, or hospitals or something like that. I can't remember who it was. He was in today, and he was just saying basically about, you have to make sure our health system is working really hard. And they are working really hard. Good on them, and thank you, we're so grateful. And to be honest, this is the hardest they would have ever had to work, and by generations. Like, I don't think any nurses or any doctors would have had to work this hard and in such horrible conditions before them, or for a few years, for almost 100 years. I'm talking about before wars and all that stuff, right? And even that, like, now everything is at our doorstep, so this is probably the toughest time they'll ever face, this generation of doctors and nurses. But in saying that, when they say that, they said, so you make sure. So it's like, hold on a minute, it's not my fault. The way it seemed to be, like, it's like your fault that they're struggling, and it's your fault that people are being left outside in the ambulances with COVID cases. It's your fault. It's not. It's not. It's your fault. You failed to control a virus, control the disease. You failed the quarantine system. You failed. You failed the vaccination rollout. You failed fucking everything. You failed with the mask rule. Apparently, it was good. It wasn't good. You failed with fucking absolutely everything. And then you have the audacity as a government, as elected leaders that we put in place, to stand up and say that you, the people, failed us. And
Yeah,
that's the narrative, is the real problem. It's like, fuck, what do you mean?
that's
I'm
an
like,
amazing point, bro. Yeah.
right. I when I heard that, right, and it was like, obviously because he's talking to a population, and as at an individual level, when I heard that, I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? I'm doing everything right, and you cannot make a general comment like that, say, like, it's they're suffering because of you. No, they're suffering because of you fucker, or your government system. That's the fact. And it is so easy. And this is the thing, and this is the social conditioning. I've got few friends who are working, like, doctors or nurses, right? And I saw one of my nurse friends, and basically, a doctor friend, right? Basically, he was talking about how, get vaccinated, it's been tough and whatnot, right? And I know for a fact, right, he's right, 100%. It's probably been really tough, right? He's saying, oh, so don't complain about getting vaccinated. It's like, yeah, you're right. But the thing is, you're thinking that people don't want to get vaccinated, or you're thinking that people want to put you in harm's way. That's what the doctors are thinking, because that's what the general narrative is being portrayed. You're taking a system who was built for the system, for the people, right? Medical system. You're turning them against the people. So now they are thinking that, oh, we're suffering because of the people, not realizing that it is the failure of the government themselves that we are in this position. And now we're taking the one of the most literally the most caring system that was put into the most, I think it's probably one of the greatest privileges to have a medical system that supports every illness, often for free, right? Because unless you have health insurance, all that stuff, right? But generally, in terms speaking, for free, they'll take care of you if you're dying, right? So it's so incredible, and they take that to turn that against you. So that's what I'm talking about, being a government using these things to weaponize it. So how could a health minister, whatever they are, right, or whatever the person who was talking about ambulance, to stand up and say that if you care for those people, you'll go get vaccinated? Like, no. You're getting this entirely wrong. Yes, we do care for it. This is already implied, but you're the one who is fucking all this. Like, you're so. I think that's interesting how all these things are getting turned against each other. And at first, we were really proud of, like, the whole idea of frontline workers, right? And that was such a beautiful idea of like supporting them. But now I realize that that idea is now being used as being weaponized, and now that's being used against. If you're a frontline worker, you're a victim, and your enemy number one is the population who are not frontline workers, which is insane to think about. That my dad's essentially, if you define, if my dad's like doing whatever deliveries and stuff, he goes into frontline work, right? So I'm not against my dad, like, you know what I mean? So it does not make sense the way, my friends are doctors and my friends are nurses. I love them to death, like, not because they're doctors, just in general. But now the narrative is that the general population is against the frontline workers. So it's really interesting, and how
Yeah.
that's all those terms that they played as terms of endearments are now being weaponized. And now also look at how, anti-vaxxers, right? It's such a bizarre term that goes, it probably, anti-vaxxers was probably a joke from before. It was a legitimate thing of people, who didn't want to get their kids vaccinated with like all the the kids vaccines that you get when you're a child, and those are probably a bunch of idiots, right? But now we're talking about population. We're talking about people. Anyone who talks about, hey, is there a chance that this vaccine, anyone who asks a question about the vaccine is instantly labeled as anti-vaxxer, despite the fact that our own government, our own premier of Queensland stood up and said she will not give the vaccine, AstraZeneca vaccine, to its people because she doesn't want people to die. That's what she said. There's a recording of it, so anyone can look it up, right? And then if I said that, I get instantly labeled as a anti-vaxxer. And the thing is, this one, I did get the vaccine because I do think the vaccines work. But if I ask a question, you're instantly anti-vaxxer. So I think this is crazy. Like, I mean, more I talk about it, I just realize how fucked up all this shit is.
Yeah, and that's it began as a way the government saw that there was a very strong percentage of people, and a few ways they did it. The first one being like just polling. I remember last year on Facebook there were government sponsored and just big brand sponsored polls that you would see all the time. If a vaccine became available, would you get it? And there was oftentimes when you saw the results, a lot of people just said no. Well, they said, if you had to get it, would you get it? It's like, no, I don't really want to be forced. So they knew very early that, people were going to need some convincing to get the job done. Obviously, the tracking app as well. I think only about 4% of the population got that one, or 5% or something. So they knew
Well,
that it's like,
that's
okay,
because they got hacked by some kid in India.
yeah, and plus people were like, all right, this is a little bit. This smells. If it smells like fucking looks like a rabbit and it fucking hops like a rabbit, it's probably a rabbit. It just something about it was a bit iffy. It's like, all right, I understand this might be a way to, contract cases, but I don't really want to have an app 24/7 on, and people just didn't want to. And obviously we have the right, and we should always have the right to just say no to those sort of things. So in conjunction with the media, and the media certainly exist outside of the government, but they're very closely linked together when they need to be. When there's a news story or there's a narrative that needs to be pushed, they join that one. And the big one that really irritated me, and I understood the polarization of the vax and anti-vax and just everything else. And I just knew that was going to happen eventually. And it's sort of something as a society we kind of have to figure out and have better dialogue with people. And I need to have better dialogue, even personally, with people on the opposite end or the same end, whatever else. But the word essential, in you remember the non-essential and essential this and essential that. You go to supermarkets now and there's half the aisles are locked up because those items in there are not essential. Like, it's just absolute social conditioning to the highest order. Anyone who puts food on their table, anyone who's earning a living for their family or themselves is essential. And so you can say essential in regards to our society will cease to exist if these people don't work. Hey, I get it. They deserve first priority. They should be getting the vaccination first. They should be getting benefits or whatever else, assistance, everything else. But for you to just tell people they can't operate their businesses, they can't earn a living for their family, and like, hey, we live in a beautiful country where we can get weekly payments from the government because we have enough money and we also have a small enough population, and like, we're really thankful and grateful for that. But the amount of people that isn't helping a lot of people, that's just barely paying rent or paying mortgages or paying the water bill. Like, it is crazy that that people were forced to cease business after an extended period of time. And obviously the measures they brought in, like limiting the amount of people in closed, QR codes, the amount of people in venues that were indoors, masks, all these sort of things we know can actually help societies that implemented these sort of things. They were able to alleviate the tension of COVID. And so these are all great, but to just lock people down, it's just flat out inhumane. And the fact that people aren't seeing that anymore. And I understand how people are more supportive or more understanding than others. And I think we're all entitled to our own separate opinion. But at the end of the day, locking people down against their will, not allowing people out of their house for more than an hour, and you're going to get fined a lot. And there was people who went on a hike and they had to call the police because they got lost on a hike. And then they got saved, and then they got fined $8,000 for leaving more than 5 kilometers from their house. That's just bullshit tyranny. It is what it is. You can call it whatever it is, or it needs to be done because this virus is dangerous, bro. If 50% of the population is falling down, if 5 or 10% of the population are dropping dead in the streets because of this thing, we might need to bring these draconius, which is just very intense measures in. And the truth is, if this thing gets dangerous enough like that, people are going to stay the F home because people, myself included, are absolute pussies. I don't want to die, so I will stay home if this thing's going to knock people over. But the fact that these sort of things are just being forced, and then not just being forced on people, but people are dobbing their neighbours in and doing those sort of things. Bro, if you want to be an ass clown, that's exactly right. It's exactly right. If you want to be an ass clown and you want to go over to you're in the middle of a hot spot and you want to go to someone's house and spread the virus, well, you're a dummy. But I think you should have the right to be a dumbass. You know what I mean?
Well, so this is a thing, right? And this is where the arguments becomes, and so this is why you can't have a serious conversation with anyone, is because the way the government twisted and conditioned us socially, that we go, oh, well, no, someone's gonna die, right? Which is 100% true. But I just remember something. The commissioner of New South Wales or whatever, right? Have you heard him talk? He's a complete fucking pig, right? And no fucking remorse for him. No remorse for him. He gets up there, right? He goes, all these measures are there, and they're, I do not apologize. What the fuck do you mean you don't apologize? It's like, hold the fuck on, bro. Like, you once again, this is the problem. The wording they're using, I do not apologize. Well, first, that sentence wasn't even necessary. Like, if you didn't use that sentence, it would have been all good. But you had the fucking audacity to use a sentence saying, I do not apologize, that will come down hard. No, motherfucker, why are you just say, we're going to have to toughen the restriction, it's going to be really tough, and you better apologize. You go, we're sorry in advance, but this is going to be, it changes the whole conversation. Just instead of saying, I do not apologize, it just makes it like, it is turning. That's exactly what it is. And that's the problem. And now And this is the problem, because no one is looking at these things and go, okay, well, no, that's what he just meant. Well, no, he didn't fucking just mean that. Why would he fucking say that? He said that every fucking single press conference. I do not apologize for it. Fucking motherfucker, fuck off. Go up. You better apologize, because we fucking pay out your wages. Like, that's the fact of the matter. Like, and this is where it gets really, we start fighting among ourselves as people, because if I start questioning something, or I know someone's going to listen to like 10% of this podcast and be like, no, 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 like, we care about the people. I fucking get it. Like, I care about people and all that stuff, right? The problem is the government is using this so tactfully, is just putting these systems in place, and this may be the issue, right? So think about couple of years ago, people were so worried about privacy. You remember when big privacy changes came around? Do you remember that, Lachlan, about 3 years ago?
Yeah, when a lot
The
of
big
companies got found out they were selling data and those
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of things.
So huge privacy rules came around. Like, everyone had to have this, like, a preview on their website where it said, accept as a person. If you go on any website, they'll ask you, you understand that we're tracking cookies and all that stuff, right? So that came out, right? And that was a few months ago, and 3 years ago, and that came out. And then everyone was, at the time, everyone was so against, so everyone's life was so private, everyone appreciated their privacy so much. Now let's look at what we're doing now, right? So we're at the time, wherever we go, we have to check in and all that stuff, right? So New South Wales government is essentially have a live feed of whatever you're doing, which all is all and well, because I know that's necessary to track the virus. But my question is there a chance this, or a lesser version of this, is gonna stick around after this pandemic is gone? Most simple answer is, you go, well, this is not the time to worry about that, because we got bigger things to worry about. We got things like fucking staying alive to worry about. That's very true. But seriously, is there a chance? Is there a small chance that these things would stick around? And if they stick around, what would be the impact on society for those? And how much will the government be able to track all these things? And now talk about the police, right? They've increased all these fines to, you breathe, you get a $5,000 fine, and you chuck a shit, you get $16,000 fine, and all these things, right? So what's going to happen to all these fines and all this tracking, right? Once all this shit ends, right? You go, well, are they just going to instantly snap their fingers and just roll it all back? There won't be any more, the government won't be getting a live feed on where the fuck I am. I won't get fined for chucking it. I won't get fined $6,000 for chucking a shit. Is that how it's going to be? And that's a real question. You still there? Just checking. So those are legitimate questions to see what would happen.
Sorry, mate, if you can keep the ball rolling, I'm just having to reconnect my headphones. I just don't want your voice coming over on the mic.
I see.
All right,
So
good,
basically, okay. So yeah, that's all I was saying, right? So essentially, all these systems that we're putting into place, just to sum it up, you got the government is getting a live feed of what we're doing. Essentially, we go to the toilet, we have to check in and all this stuff, right? 3 years ago, like I was said, it was so taboo that people were tracking your shit. What are you doing online? But now, forget about online. Fucking, you have to sign into the fucking toilet. And dare I say, it's becoming so normalized. And I was just telling this to Lachlan, right? And I was just in my room, and I was about to go to walk to get some water, right? And I instinctively picked up the mask, and I was about to put it on. And so the thing is about humans is we'll just adapt to everything, and what would happen,
Right,
and
I
will
was at
these
the
things
beach
go away?
today, and people were wearing masks at the beach. And they weren't around anyone. They were just walking on the beach with masks on. I'm like, oh, mate. My favorite one is when it first happened down in Cough Central, right? Someone was having a durry, like no word of a lie. They had a durry, right? They had their COVID mask on. They didn't even pull the mask down. They just slipped the smoke under the mask and then put it back on, and the air was coming out. I'm like, mate, this is a batshit world, eh? But mate, it's just craziness. It is just craziness.
The question is, and this is my question, Look, and tell me what you think. will these rules, so soon as this COVID shit ends, everything else, will they just snap away in a second?
Yeah, so and I still believe yes, it probably will. Just like anything, when 9/11 happened, there were certain restrictions that were implemented on planes and those sort of things. So society will never totally be the same. You definitely hope, and I do believe that it'll return back to a certain sense of normality. Um, I don't know about these QR codes, and I don't know about these other things. It just depends on government legislation, like how many of these things move and are implemented and come back and that sort of thing. Obviously, if the vaccination thing goes ahead in a few years down the road, you're still not able to get into places because you're not vaccinated. That's honestly really interesting, and I just can't foresee. I don't know what's going to happen in that regard, but we have to always be cautious of people in power, whether it's our bosses or whether it's our parents, whether it's our friends, family who have a certain level of responsibility and power over people, or it's our government. We have to always be cautiously optimistic in regards to different changes that are happening. And at the end of the day, if you're not allowing people to leave 5 kilometers from their house, of course I'm worried that it's not going to go back. You know what I mean? So I honestly can't answer it. Like, I hope it doesn't. But I've got just from what's happened over the last 12 months and what's been happening for a long time, I don't have any confidence in our government, barely whatsoever. So I don't have any confidence that they're going to, once they get this power, they're going to give it back or whatever else. Or maybe we go back to normal for a few months and then bloody fucking Juliet or, Tango, these letters start coming out and they start restricting people all again. You know what I mean? It's only a matter of time, because if people are vaccinated and this virus picks up again and people are getting hurt and injured and dying and there's more cases, you kind of got to think, all right, the sort of the safety net for lockdowns have been vaccinations. Once people are vaccinated, it's kind of what's it called?
Herd immunity.
Herd immunity in the community, I should say. And then we sort of just try our best, you know what I mean? We could limit big gatherings. We can sort of limit these quote unquote super spreader events, and maybe that'll come back together. But I just feel like there's a certain level of instability that won't ever really go away, at least for a long period of time. We'll always be worried or thinking that, hey, when's this going to come back? What's going to happen next? So I think
you don't have to go very far. Just look at M4. M7. M7 was put into place, and it had tolls, and it was put into place saying that, it's going to be around for a couple of months, and, we're just going to recoup the money that, we spend on it, and that's it. 13, 15 years later down the track, they're still fucking collecting hundreds, millions, and billions of dollars of that fucking damn road. And then you got, and then, so it's the fact of the matter. It's like, you just got to look at these things, the previous behavior of how these things work. And look at right now, they're talking about selling M4 off, West Connect off to a private thing. So that means it's already getting told, and it's already an income stream. So it's going to not go to the government anymore. It's going to go to a private company. And so that's fucking scary. And you go, how are all these things that no one talks about? Because what actually happens, we're too busy fighting the left leaning and the right leaning war, that the people, because I don't think people are left leaning or right leaning, like you were saying. I think it's the great divide that comes from above that ends up being fucking us all up.
Yeah, forcing
and that's
people
what happens.
into one group or another. Yeah,
one group another. And it is easier for them to do that, because if they don't do that, it's harder to the thing is, this is kind of like a for argument. People say, oh, I would like, how in a society where people want to pick their own pronouns and stuff, right? The fact of the matter is, this is the same reason why the government or all these authority figures or authoritarianism dislikes that manner, right? And that's why you'll find a nation of what's the word where there's no rules? There's a name for it. Damn, goddamn, I forgot what it's called. Essentially, when you're living in a society where tends to be less rules, and
I know there's a word for it. I'm just trying to think.
Ah, goddamn! There's a
I can't think
political.
is it a T or is it a
No,
U?
no, 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 no. Euphemism or something like that.
Yeah.
Equibitian. I don't know, right?
LGBTQ. I don't know.
No. It's like you. It starts with you. It starts with you. I know
Yeah.
that. And like it's like I think it drives from the word euphoric, but it's something along those lines. Anyway, that's besides the point, right? So if you live in a society like that, you'll find people are a lot free to choose who they are. The problem with that is you cannot categorize those people, and then that means without categorization, you cannot throw blanket rules over them, right? So this is why, and then when you go, and because we gotta hear individualistic stories, and those individualistic stories make the big narrative. The idea is, the problem is when you're sitting on the top, as from an authoritative figure, it's harder for you to control so many different opinions and so many different individualistic stories. So it's easier for just to label them, put them in two categories, and let them fight among themselves. I think that's easier for a governing body, or hence an example of China. There's just one fucking opinion, so that's why it's easy for them to to navigate that. So I see why that exists.
So a
Sorry,
little
was that?
search here is like an anarchist or an anarchy, a state of society without government or law, political and social disorder due to the absence of governmental control. So they're saying anarchy, but I feel like there's another word for it.
There's another. It starts with U. It's like yeah, but yeah, go on.
It's something. So what I assumed anarchy is, that's the result of the society, not having the rules. Like anarchy ensues because of this thing, but I don't really know. So yeah, take a second, mate. All the boys and girls are listening, mate. We're not on radio. We don't have to fill dead air. We can dig around for a second or two. This has been good, mate. And this is one of those episodes that I'd really love to see what people are thinking. You know what I mean? I'd love to get some comments or just get some messages, what people agree or disagree with us. We, from the beginning, if you've listened to our episodes and everything else, we always try to be super fair and super reasonable. And even now,
utopian society.
Yeah, utopian society. There it is.
That's
Perfect.
what I was thinking.
Utopia.
Utopian.
Yeah, it's really close to
Utopian
euphoria
society.
and like utilitarian.
Utilitarian. That's it.
Yeah. So it's like, so we always try to be fair at everything else, but I think you do have to get to a point that you've got to stand up for what you believe in. You know what I mean? And obviously, always be open for opposite opinions. And I really I've got some friends that disagree with me, or at least have different opinions, and I understand what they're saying. But I also see that they're buying into the lockdowns, bro, and it's just dangerous territory, man. It's just dangerous territory.
See, this is the
I'm
thing,
talking
right?
extreme lockdowns. I'm not talking like 15,000 people arenas. Okay, bro, I agree. We shouldn't be gathering and inside 20,000 people in friggin' Sydney Arena in bloody in Homebush. I totally agree with that. Like, nightclubs probably shouldn't be popping off and the boys yahooing and carrying on to 4 a.m. The casinos with 10,000 people roaming around. I get that, but man, you can't you can't go 5 kilometers, and it's not like I'm going into someone's house and licking their door handles and saying, hey, I can do whatever I want. No, of course, keep your distance, 1.5 meters, wear a mask, like indoors. But if I live in Penrith, I can't go to the beach. It's just like, bro, that is just extremism, man. It's crazy.
Well, that's what totalitarianism is, essentially. Totalitarianism is, which you got centralized government control, and they control everything that you do, and then you've got you've got less of a opinion.
And these governments, even throughout World War II, and it's extreme examples. Sorry to cut you off. It's extreme examples to bring in Nazi Germany, but this didn't begin with. This didn't begin with a government just forcing it on the people and you've got no other option. It eventuated in that stage, but actually how it began was social buy-in, people believing that this level of control and believing ultimately that the Jewish people needed to be eradicated. They bought in on that sort of thing. And obviously I'm not trying to parallel these things. They're very extreme and different examples. And the Holocaust is obviously different to what's going on now, but it wasn't like you've got to do this and you're listening. If not, you're gone. there's too many people. The government and the police, they can't do it that way. It's sneaky, man. It's turn on each other. It's get more people on our side, and there will be outliers. There will be quote unquote anti-vaxxers, but when they're the minority, we can deal with them. At the moment, I believe there's still a majority of people that don't like that's what's going on. They just don't know how to voice their opinion, and they're also worried that if they go to a protest or if they make their opinion online, that they're going to get crucified. But at the end of the day, guys, we have to stand up for what we believe in, and we might get persecuted for this, that, and the other. But your internal morals are more important than your personal feelings. So try not to forget that your internal morals are more important than your feelings being hurt.
And the fact is, I do think that the idea of protest, such huge protests, is fairly silly, especially when you're talking about a disease, right? But it is interesting that a protest.
It's silly, but fuck, they can do it. I don't want to live in society where you can't do that shit.
That's what I mean. I do think it's silly, but the whole idea, our society was built on these protests and all that stuff. And think about, and this is, I'm gonna probably get drilled for it. Think about the protests that have happened in the past, and this is the thing is, right, and I hope this is not the case. I know I've heard the idea of hopefully if people are protesting right now, hopefully these are the same people will also protest when something else happens, right? When we need to when we need to nudge the government for something, whether it be climate change action or whatever, right? I hope these same people show up to protest for those. But in saying that, if the government is gonna take our ability to, or what if the government totally outlaws people protesting, right? And that means, what are we going to do when we need to nudge the government for the climate change action? What would have happened in the past when Rosa Parks didn't want to give up their seat, and then there was a huge protest, and then hence started one of the biggest civil rights movements, right? So all these things did start from somewhat of a stance, right? But it seems like those stances are getting shut away straight away. So what's going to happen, and then comes the biggest another issue that kind of been brewing at the bottom end of the barrel, I guess, is the idea of fake news and what is it called, false information, right? And it's huge. It's so okay. So I get the idea that false information is huge spread, right? Totally, I get it, right? And so many people say that, and you put old videos up and with renew, and then you get confused and all that stuff. That makes sense, but right, so many people are getting there's been doctors who've spoken about it. I know there was a doctor from there was a scientist who talked about how this vaccine was virus was definitely leaked from Wuhan, and she did a paper on it. Apparently her family started getting death threats and all these things, and saying, people said that she was spreading false information. She wasn't saying anything about the virus. She was saying, from what it seems like, her studies showed that from what it seems like, chances are this virus, there's a strong evidence that this virus could have. She didn't say it did. She said could have come from the lab. And she got in trouble. She got a lot in trouble. Apparently, she got death threats and all these things. And there was people labeled her as a conspiracist. She was a scientist, right? So
yeah.
So does that mean from now on, anyone we don't like is fake news? You know what I mean? Is that, if we don't agree with the opinion, that's a fake news? So that's kind of a problem.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you think, no, it can't happen. It's not going to happen. It does, man. It just happens in certain ways. And before we realize it, it becomes part of our normality. I think what it is she was saying that just its evolutionary properties or its ability to adapt. And there was something on the outside of the actual virus itself, very from a microscopic level, that they hadn't seen in biology before. It's like, this is really unique, and it's a SARS virus that's existed before. There was an original COVID back in the day that was not nearly as potent, but it was just like, man, this thing, we just can't find it. Well, we can't find a K0, so we can't see where it started, but it's constantly changing. We just can't figure out what's going on. And so those questions are just, she was exactly right, crucified now. And so, hey, those are sort of the big fish to fry. Hopefully one day we figure out what sort of went on, but by that stage, it really doesn't matter, because all the damage has already been done. Society's already been changed. So, Hey, it is what it
It
is, matey.
is what it is.
Mate, on closing, if that's all right by you, did you have any more thoughts, mate? I feel like we danced around it a fair bit today, and we sort of went where we needed to. Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, no, I think I've got nothing. I'm got nothing to say.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
poured it out,
you know,
guys. We hope that you appreciate the honesty, because we certainly let rip there a little bit. But I felt like there was a lot that I needed to get off my chest, and you might be in the same boat as well, bro.
yeah, yeah. It's an interesting time we live in, to say the least.
Amen to that, mate. And I guess just before we go, I wanted to give a little shout out to a certain company called Raiz. Raiz is spelt RAIZ.
Oh,
So there's obviously a massive conundrum that old bloody non-financial battlers like myself have always had an issue. Like, I've heard about the stock market, I've heard about dodgy coin and Bitcoin and Elon Musk smoking weed on Joe Rogan's podcast and stock stripping, but I didn't really know what was going on. So from your advice with Connor in our last episode, which is actually yet to be released, but I'm sure by the time this one's released, it'll be out. Yeah, so that was episode 30. You guys were speaking largely on finance for most of the episode, and you were speaking about this app called Raise, and I started using it. It just has a really brilliant way of explaining what the stock market is, how they invest in the stock market, explaining overall profit percentages, and sort of where your money goes. So it's Raise, RAIZ, is basically just an investment app. It's really clever because it's designed where you can invest large sums or total sums into the stock market. Just a really great way of saving, because you have the option of not doing risky bets. I do call it bets, because betting on putting money in the stock market is betting a little bit, but you do have ways of not doing risky investments where you're not going to lose a whole heck of a lot of money. And they're really clever because it links up to your bank account, like myself, and it'll just sum up the money that you pay. So, like, I pay for Spotify $14.95 a month. 5 cents of that goes into this Raise app. I buy coffee for $5.50. 50 cents of that goes into the Raise app. I've been using it for a week, and I already have nearly $40 just from little micro transactions and little transactions on myself. You can also go and you can create like a savings account for your child. Obviously, my baby Abby's just over 1. I'm setting up a long-term savings account on there that by the time she's 18, hopefully she's got enough money to maybe to fly to Adelaide with the prices of she might be able to get a car or do something like that. So yeah, just a really cool way. And shout out to Raise for just making a great product that's just easy to understand. You don't need to be a bloody black belt in accounting to understand the inner workings of investment. It's just really easy, and you can just link it up to your bank accounts, and you can just do little top ups here and there, 10 cents, 15 cents. You have the option of turning that off, so you can select, hey, I've got 30, 40 cents worth of round ups that I'd like to put in. I'll do that, and you don't need to do it. You can take your money out straight away. There's no Yahoo and Karen on. There's no weird terms and conditions, and they've got a lot of really great security measures in there. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I've already bought in on it, and yeah, I really recommend it. So Raise, RAIZ, and they've partnered with us as well. So both Anik and I have codes that if you do sign up with them, you can use this very unique code, and you can get $5 to kick your investment off. My code is slightly separate to Anik's, so I don't want to say it out and then take your business, So reach out to me
go ahead.
if you want to get into it. So
you'll get $5.
You get $5. We get $5, and that's just going to build towards the future. It's basically just a savings account, but it's predicated around the stock market and just really easy investments here or there. And it's done in a way where it's not a large burden, like you're committing a lot of money here or there. You can go at your own pace, and it's just a great product.
The biggest thing is about Raise, and this is what I love about them, they carry a certain level of educating you so slowly, ever so slowly, that you don't get annoyed about it. Because the biggest thing is, everyone hates learning, and the moment you talk about finances or investing, there's a certain stigma attached to it. You go, no, like this is like not for me because I don't want to lose money and all that stuff, right? So with everything rising and stuff, so this is Raise very slowly but surely educate you. And the reason I say slowly is good, because that means you don't have to feel the burden of like, oh shit, I'm taking in information of like what's an index fund, what's a 401, all these things, right? So you're just like, okay, this is how it works, and you go, all of a sudden you start understanding, and that's how you begin your journey to hopefully a financial freedom journey, So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
would definitely recommend it. I've been using it for roughly 3.5, 4 years. They after you reach, I think, $5,000, there's like a yearly fee of like $2.50 or something like that. Don't quote me on it; they might have
Just
changed.
like you
But
would at a bank if you
yeah,
are investing a certain
I
amount
can
of
tell
money.
you, I can tell you that now. Their annual fees or their transaction fees are a lot less than CBA. So if you just, so
That's a win-win, baby. That's a win-win.
win-win. So yeah, definitely give it a go. And good. And as we know, especially during these times, we learned having a savings is more important than ever before.
Totally, yeah. And just the concept of like you buying something for $10.30 and 70 cents of that goes, it's just rounded up. It's like not a large, that's the hardest part about saving money for a lot of people is like, okay, where am I going to take the money out? Some weeks here or there, it's little bits here or there. And then once you realize you can afford that, like you go, okay, I'll put a couple of dollars away and seeing it in front, seeing it where it's going. And just a really great, easy to use app, an Australian company.
That's
Ticks all the
right.
boxes for me, so I love it.
And last but not least is if you are still not convinced by the investment sides of it, you can treat the whole app or the whole system as just a savings account.
Totally,
The
yeah.
best part about it is you can completely turn off your investment, or like you can set it to like really, really conservative. And so essentially you'll still get more than your general interest you get from a normal bank on your savings. What you could do, easy way to save, is you can set auto transfers. So weekly, let's say you get paid on Friday or like Thursday, you can set a on Friday, it takes out $80 out of your account. The best part about Raise is, let's say when you transfer the money back, it doesn't instantly appear in your new other account. So the benefit that means is that, let's say you're out with the friends, and let me paint a picture for you. You're out with your friends and you want to swipe your card away, and you go realize, oh no, I have to pull money out of my savings account. And for you to just transfer the money, and then you got money available and you spend your saving. But now you have to wait 10 to 8 hours before the money appears, or in some cases 24 hours. So then you'll be like, god damn, I can't transfer money, and then you end up saving more money.
Yeah,
So
100%.
fun fact.
It's a savings app as much as it is, an investment app as well. So yeah, check it all out. And there's no commitment to it at all. You can just sort of see what's going on. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But just having that little bit of a nugget of like, hey, I'm putting a little bit of money away, and I'm not really noticing where the money's going. It's not big chunks. I'm not committing to a certain amount, or like a bank where you've got to put certain amount of saving in per month, or you get fees. There's none of that sort of thing. So yeah, absolutely love it, bro. And heck of a podcast episode, mate. We're nearly 90 minutes. I hope you guys have enjoyed that. Of course, check us out on social media. We are the Clever Dummies Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and any other platforms you do choose to delve very deep into our podcast, we would appreciate a follow and a share. Just one friend that you might know that's out there battling away. They might be working, they might be at home, just need a little bit of time to kill. Just a 10 or 15 minutes of, even a minute of viewing our podcast sort of just helps us get out there, helps us more people see the show. And of course, if anything we say you disagree with, or you agree with, or you just have any ideas, or you just want to chat, feel free to reach out to our social media accounts, either personally, myself or Anik, or through Clever Dummies. And we'll certainly love to keep the dialogue going, because that's really what we want to get to the stage here, is we're not just talking to each other and talking into outer space. We want to build a community here. So yeah, absolutely love what's going on. And yeah, we really appreciate you tuning in. So you want to wrap us up for us, Anik?
Thank you for a beautiful podcast. It was really good to get all those things off my chest. So let's keep bringing it back. Thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, and on that note, we'll leave you and love you. Check us out on the social medias, on the Clever Dummies Podcast, like Lachlan already mentioned. And on that note, good night, good morning, and we hope you have a beautiful day. Stay safe. Don't let the lockdowns get you too down. This has been the Clever Dummies Podcast, episode 31. Anik and Lachlan. So, on that note, good night.
Peace.